cheers to another episode of the Wine Notes Podcast. I'm your guide, AJ Winezettel, on this journey of stories showcasing the people behind the wonderful world of wine, where we dive into conversations ranging from terroir, viticulture, to favorite music, superpowers, and more. Please enjoy this episode of the Wine Notes Podcast. Michael, Mariel, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Totally.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I mean, fall is actually like here now. We're rainy and temperatures are starting to cool down. And
it's
holy
the
cow.
best time of year.
And harvest is done.
Yes.
That's the important
harvest is
part.
done. Yeah. We pulled in our last fruit October 4th. 5th. 4th or 5th?
4th or 5th.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah, we're tired.
I don't blame you.
It's hard to remember dates at this point.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Shall I start off with a little bit of a blind wine?
Please do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as I tell everybody, I try to find a connection with the blind wine in you. And, you know, you can say whatever you want to. You can say it's yummy. You can say it's awful. You can say you nerd out on it. It is totally, completely up to you.
Cool.
And then toward the end of the podcast, I will reveal what we have.
Cool.
Oh, I'm nervous.
You know, it's fun to, you know, have a little bit of a blind wine and just...
No, that's super fun.
Yeah.
You're giving me testing PTSD right now.
Well, you know, I got to have a reason to go to therapy.
It's cool. There's some maturity like right on the nose. Like that cool like honey waxy thing. So definitely some like oxidation, whether that's intentional in the style or not, but it seems like vibrant in the nose too.
Yeah. I opened it about an hour ago and, you know, I wanted to make sure it's kind of at room temperature. Didn't want it to be overly chilled.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, super pretty, like honey oxy overtones, like super elegant, integrated. You get that like pervasive, like kind of like twinkling minerality.
It's
It's pretty
beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
Very
Okay.
European tasting.
So I'm going to go back in time a little bit.
Sure.
You had a tasting set up at Flaneur that got canceled.
Yes.
And you ended up going to Bergstrom
Yes.
for that tasting.
Yes.
And Michael, you were at Bergstrom as well, doing the tasting.
Yeah.
From Mariel and her friend, and you know it was a bad day for them, and you kind of like brought a ray of sunshine into their day.
He did indeed.
Yeah,
Could have sold me anything that day.
anything, and you ended up getting an industry discount because your mom, your parents have a bottle shop in Maine.
They do. Yeah.
But tell me some more about that day.
Yeah, I think that we sort of, I think he could tell that I like knew a little bit about wine and I was sort of geeking out over a few things. And, it's just it's just my friend Courtney and I and him sitting it was freezing in there. Cause they used to do the tastings in the barrel room at Bergstrom. So it was just like we had a good conversation. He's obviously very attractive, so that always helps. But yeah, we just kind of had a good conversation.
Very cool.
Yeah, went back a few weeks later and geeked out about wine again. And then, yeah.
Yeah. So at what point, Michael, where you're like, who is this person? And like, she knows about wine, and like, what intrigued you to offer up the industry discount and get her like phone number?
That was tricky. Yeah. I didn't think that was what was happening. That went right over my head.
Yeah.
So I had no idea.
I'll take credit for that. I thought that was pretty sly.
That was super sly.
Super sly.
So sly, I didn't even know what was happening. So
There you go.
But yeah, mostly just easy. You have a connection with someone and talking about, I don't know, nerding out on something. And then when someone can kind of like be like, oh yeah, da-da-da. And you're like, wait, but really?
How do you know that?
Okay, like, that's cool. All right.
Yeah,
There's frames of reference. So
Right.
she had some sort of background or affiliation, or you worked in your mom's shop and so on and so forth. But you, I don't know, more than that. It's people don't really have that level of knowledge unless there was like some sort of self pursuit or self interest as well.
Right.
As just like hearing geeky things in passing. So you kind of had like the framework or the mechanics to, I don't know, just like continue those interesting conversations, and I can talk about that stuff all day long. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. Then you were bachelor edding it up, and you had a bunch of expired stuff in your fridge. So what were some of the things that were so expired and like?
Oh God, I forgot about the story. Yeah, he came to my house and he was like, "This is expired." I'm like, condiments don't expire. I don't think condiments expire.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was lots of things that he was like pulling out of my. If it's a bit of disarray perhaps in my kitchen. I'm a very clean person, but I'm a little like disorganized, let's say.
Right.
So he was like going through, there was a day that he pulled everything out of all of my cabinets and set it all on the counters. And I was like, this is embarrassing. So yeah, I think there was
That's why I did it. I wanted to shame you. Yeah. I tried to invite all of your friends over so they could see too, but everyone was busy.
It worked. I was shamed.
Yeah.
And you're here to talk about it today.
Yeah. And here we are.
I was trying to establish how well we would work on problems together, like problem solving. Like, let's just get this out in the open.
Right.
Like you have expired things and I need them gone. And I was like, but I like my old mayonnaise, things like that.
I felt condiments are probably neutral. Like if we were going to navigate like the wine business and like kids and families and all that kind of stuff, like start at condiments, see how it goes.
See how it
your
goes.
way up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it went okay. I was shamed for sure, but like at the end of the day, it was so much better organized. He's very good at those kinds of things. So I lucked out there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. In talking about your parents' bottle shop, what was that? Okay, so I was going to say, what was that like growing up? And the reason I ask, do you all know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Yes.
So, I mean, he grew up
Yeah.
in kind of a similar fashion. I kind of got an idea of, his point of view.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious of your
So
point
this
of view.
came about a little later in life for my mom. She was like a healthcare lobbyist actually for about 20 years prior to them moving to the East Coast. And my stepdad's an emergency doctor. And so she started by just managing the shop originally, and then they bought in like an ownership stake of it. So I wasn't really a part of it until I moved to Maine. I think I was 21. Yeah. And so I worked there a little bit and worked around the corner at the wine bar that was originally associated with the shop. And just, it was a great learning experience. My parents got really into wine when I was like in high school, and travel a bunch for it and let me drink wine at the table. So that was always nice. So I got an early exposure. You start at like Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio and go onwards and upwards from there.
A little bit. Yeah. Yep.
So it was cool. Like my mom always says this really corny thing to me, which I make fun of her for, but she's like,
wine is a journey.
Yes. Did I tell you that?
No.
Oh.
I do my research.
Oh, okay. So she says that all the time, and I'm always like, rolling my eyes. But it really is. It's true. Like it can take you a lot of places, and kind of combines all the things I love: language and travel and culture and food and all the things. So, no, I'm very grateful to them for kind of exposing me to that and being able to be a part of it and work the shop and work tastings.
Right.
It's a good way to kind of dip your toes in the pool.
Yeah.
I'm still mad at them for not telling me that I could have like gone on and done a degree in it, because I think I would have done that, but that's okay.
Yeah,
No.
it's difficult. I mean, you want your kids to grow up with this stability and like, you were in like healthcare, so you're like healthcare wine,
right? Right, exactly. Yeah. So I chose a different route.
Big contributors to the wine industry.
Yeah.
Healthcare workers.
Healthcare workers drink
them.
quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, they're.
and I certainly did my part.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No.
Yeah.
But no, it was fun. It was fun to be a part of it. And it's still there. My mom doesn't manage the day-to-day operations anymore, but she sure gets wine at cost, and that's the important thing.
That is the important thing. Yes.
Totally.
Yourself, Michael, you were I'm going to mispronounce this, a Muay Thai fighter?
Oh,
For 10 years?
Muay Thai.
Muay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Competitive Muay Thai in kind of the Bay Area, and then in Arizona. Yeah.
Why?
I like doing like hard things, like complex problem solving, I
Right.
guess, but not like sitting and doing complex problem solving, like actively doing complex problem solving.
Right.
And I love just sports and athletics, and I'm a minimalist. And
Right.
so I could do this with rolling in flip-flops every day, maybe wrapping my hands, and then, could get to work.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's why I'm not like a hiker, because you need
It's-
like a
you
kit
need
and
all the things.
yeah, like
Right.
a walkie-talkie, I don't know, the things that hikers need, but like
Did you
it's
say
a
a
lot.
walkie-talkie?
Yeah, don't you take it's safe.
I think
Yeah,
of
that
way if
safety,
you
like
have-
a telephone.
Okay.
Well,
You don't have service.
or, I mean, if you're in a group,
Yeah.
you might want a walkie-talkie for
Yeah.
short range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heads up, there's a gecko up on the left. You might want to check out. Real cool gecko.
Over.
10-4, gecko on the left.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that is very awesome. You brought a few wines.
We did?
Yes.
Do you want to dive into one of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
We can go us or
Yeah, start with ours.
bounce around.
Sounds
or
good.
Us. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
Maybe we'll go backwards. Should we go backwards?
Whatever you want. This.
I'm not sure.
It's all up to you.
Okay.
The pressure is on right now.
Yeah. Okay. We can do us. That's fine.
Okay.
This is Chardonnay. Can I pour for you?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you were telling me when you came in, you just hand bottled these, right?
Yep, this was the old keg in a basement on top of some other recently bottled wine in boxes, and just gravity siphoned into Magnum. So no disparagement, so just bottled with plenty of oxygen, especially pulling out of the keg. And
Right.
but kind of a cool, I don't know. It's good to have things around that you want to drink and pull, and we try to prevent ourselves from pulling like finalized labeled bottlings as much as possible. So this is kind of like the family stash.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing this today.
Oh, yeah.
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 No, it's
Okay.
got to be a very special little bottle.
Yeah, thanks. But hopefully with that auction we get a little more expression a little earlier on. But I
Yeah.
think they'll age quite well. So
Well, I'm very curious to try this. I know at the Nescoin Wine Festival, you poured me I think it was the 22 Zenith
Yeah.
Vineyard Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
And I think that, like, one of the first words out of my mouth was like, this has got to be in stainless for quite a bit of time.
Interestingly, it wasn't. It was in stainless for like
a few weeks.
3 weeks,
Yeah.
3 to 4 weeks, just at the end there. It spent most of its life in neutral puncheons,
Okay.
like some Austrian and French puncheons.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of minimalist with the process. We, I guess, we'll speak into to maybe the profile, maybe the what you felt was kind of the linear or brightness or acid perception of stainless steel. I like the idea of working with a lot of texture. I think that a big aspect for me, or at least kind of what wine has brought out. I love food. I love cooking. And it's kind of like the assemblance of all those ingredients that they don't just add the thing that you're adding, but they add continually contrasting elements.
Right.
And so I think with the texture that we're able to get on this wine, there's even more perceptible acidity than maybe even the chemistry would say. I remember while making this wine, I consulted some fellow winemaker friends of mine who are all super awesome, and like way better winemakers than me, and properly educated. And all of them, they were like, "Oh, I would acidify, bump that to 6 whatever, so on and so forth, and then TA and whatnot." And I'm like, "Okay, good to know. Like 3 people who are way smarter than me, and like this is what they would do. Okay, I'm not going to do that because then like I'll know,
Right.
because if I can't make that wine and know, then how do I know if whatever thing I'm correcting or adding, if I'm going in the right direction or if that's what's best for the wine."
Right.
So it's cool that maybe you note that that it feels like it's stainless. I feel like that's been a lot of the early perceptions of the wine. It's obviously very youthful. It's like really shut down right now. So kind of on day 4 and 5, we kind of get a better idea of the fruits and things going on. But yeah, I like. For now, at least, I don't like changing the chemistry on our wine. So what we pick with is what we work with.
No, and that's great. And the wine here today in the glass, is it the same?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to get to revisit it and
Yeah.
acquaint myself with it. I just love, like, if I had to pick out one thing in particular, it's the finish on this.
Thank you.
It just lingers and lingers and lingers, and yeah, you get that, I call it a racy edge, but you have to kind of pay attention to actually get it and grasp it. But I like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I want something that intrigues me, that catches my attention, that I have to dig deep a little for to really appreciate. Because, a lot of, some of the other Chardonnays, they're very high acidity and it's just a big old mouthful, and you're like, oh, hi.
Right.
But this is that leanness that I really appreciate.
Cool.
Yeah, we were pretty happy with it. I'm very excited with the finished product. Like I think like last night we're sitting on the couch drinking it. They say don't get high on your own supply, but we tend to pull this out quite a bit just because I think we both really love drinking it. And I think that's a sign that we've done something right. If we've made something that like pleases our palates, then we're happy with that and like excited that other people, find the same in it. So, yeah.
And don't they say, you should make stuff for your palate that you like?
Yes.
And not for everybody else?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be too hard. I mean, this is hard, but it's like a personal, challenging thing that I can tackle. But I think if I had to make wine for someone else's specific palate or for another reason, it would just be too difficult. I feel like I'm so connected to the process, and actually, the kind of Chardonnay you described early on, or maybe 10 years ago at this point, but I think that's what I would have wanted to make initially starting down this journey. And, wine's funny like that. Like I remember going down like the acid rabbit hole with Riesling and Gruner,
right.
and Aligote even, and Brut Nature Champagne and all these things, and thinking like there's no limit. Right?
How much acid?
There's no limit. Like, we're just going to sour skittle this all the way until the wheels fall off. And then you sort of get to this point where you're like, oh, like, there's a redundancy here sometimes.
Right.
Oh, sometimes the acid is sort of there and the other elements aren't in balance, or there's so much striking quality to the acidity that limits the complexity or the evolution of the wine when it's in the glass or it's in your mouth, or, so on and so forth. So, actually, this gentleman, one of the gods here, Shav, there's a really cool podcast with him, and he describes Marsanne Roussanne vineyard that he farms, and they're so old and they're so mangled, and they can't tell the difference between what's Marsanne, what's Roussanne.
Oh, wow. And
so he doesn't treat it varietally specific, and it allows him to look at different elements that maybe other people wouldn't look at. And one of the things he talks about is again, from a chemistry standpoint, if you looked at that Marsanne Roussanne, you'd say like, don't make wine from this. Like, there's no acid.
Right.
And he says 10 years in bottle, 10 or 15 years in bottle, and the acid comes back, the freshness comes back. And so it's these like ever-changing concepts that I love so much about doing this, because it's not just like, okay, just crank up the acid. Okay, just use new oak. Okay, just do this. Because you can, at least for me, it's like you taste those wines and I'll get geeked out about them, and then it's like, there's something else here. What else is there? What else is there? What else is there?
Right.
So I love hearing about winemakers who are just like so far down the rabbit hole that they're just thinking about things in a totally different way.
Right.
Where they're like, yeah, this chemistry doesn't make sense, but just wait 10 years from now, you'll see it.
And yeah, as you're describing this, I'm like, how in the world does he even like have the vision to say in 10 or 15 years it will be perfect?
Yeah.
That's pretty intense,
mind-boggling to me.
Intense skill.
Well, and we have to take those lessons from people who have worked so hard for so long and farmed those plots of land and have access to those vines, and they've gotten to taste wines from that plot that are 10, 20, 30, 40 years old. And they're like, you know what, my father or my grandfather, so on and so forth, made these wines, and maybe I would change some things about them, but there's something here. Like, they figured something out, man. Like, whoa. Like, nobody else would have known that this is here, but they figured it out. And so carry that forward while kind of putting your own style on it and your own, techniques and ways of thinking. But just that whole idea that, like, wow, okay, like, the texture and time and sometimes varietal can even go away. And the part I love is that the chemistry can go away. If you're really sensorially, like, really involved from a sensory process, you can kind of forget about a lot of the other kind of reductive aspects.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. The other thing I'm kind of thinking about, you're taking all the condiments out of the cabinet.
Yeah.
And growing up, you were trying to put together 4 and 5 course meals. Did you ever take, like, everything out of your mom's cabinets and, like, sort it all out?
I would be great on Chopped.
You would.
Honestly?
He can take anything out of he can look in our fridge and I'm like, we have no food. There's nothing to eat. And he'll go in there and then, like, 30 minutes later, he's like, oh, I just whipped this up. And it's like this amazing, it's something you could have at a restaurant. I'm just like, I can't do that. I don't cook that way. I cook and I'm pretty good at it, but, like, I do not cook that way. But if he had a basket of stuff and they're like, here's a pear and some chocolate and some peanut butter and some shrimp or something like that, he would be like, oh, I got this. And I would be sheer panic. Like,
I would be too.
I would just chop it all up and be like, there's my attempt. And he would create something. So it's impressive.
It's not impressive. That's easier for me.
Than reading a recipe. Yeah, I'm like reading a recipe or thinking of a way that, like, my mom has shown me how to do it, and he's just like, I'm gonna wing it, and I'm just like, that's so stressful to me.
Me pulling up a recipe on the internet, and then I'm, like, staring at a screen, and I'm just instantly depressed, and then, like, my fingers are sticky, and I can't touch the key. I don't know. Like, it's bad. Throw it away. Like, smell it, touch it, taste it. We'll put it together. Yeah, that's.
Is that something that, like, you got from your mom, or you just like, hey, I'm just going to play with this and figure it out?
I started doing that stuff, I think, because I, like, wasn't a super cool kid, growing up.
None of us were.
Yeah. But, like, you find things, right? And, like, we didn't, my mom, single mom, with me and my sister, and it was like, my sister she was, like, super athletic, and she was into running, and she did art and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't, like, have a thing, right? And then food, I don't know, food was, like, gourmet food wasn't a thing I knew anything about. We eat, like, a lot of, like, white bread, Kraft single sandwiches,
Right.
And, like, Crystal Light, right? Like, that's what you drink. Like, a lot of Crystal Light.
Yes.
And then condiments is a funny thing because, like, and even like inexpensive food, it has a lot of really accessible flavors and things that we really love, right? Like, you think, like, ketchup, and it's like, okay, like, the acid, the sweetness, and even, like, the, like, weird umami of, like, fake cheese. A lot of these flavors and these things are just kind of, like, ramped up in a direction. They just need, like, complexity and balance and, all that kind of stuff. So I think, you start messing around with, like, pickles and, like, cheese and all these things, and you're just building, like, acid on top of fat, on top of umami, on top of, all these other elements.
He likes a peanut butter and cheese sandwich,
you ever
which
had
really
it?
freaks me out.
Sourdough
freaks
toast.
Me out.
Oh.
Peanut butter and cheese. I mean, first of all, I'm, like, metaphysically allergic to peanut butter. It's like I'm spiritually allergic to it. I can't stand it. But he puts it together with cheese on a sandwich, and I just watch him eat this, and he looks like he's getting so much. And I tried it once. I tried it just the other day. Remember, you made me take a bite.
Yeah.
It was weird, but it's sort of. I didn't hate the peanut butter as much as I thought. It's, like, a very weird thing that you do, though.
Okay, so
like,
it's
just like a slice of cheddar cheese with peanut butter.
Sharp cheddar cheese,
cheddar.
Crunchy peanut butter, and then just, like, toasted, like, sourdough bread.
Wow.
So you get that sour and the fat and the salt.
It wasn't that. Let's just say it wasn't the weirdest thing I've ever had. I was like, this.
Right.
I don't think I'll do this again.
And actually great with
but-
champagne and super filling and hearty. And
Right.
so like for harvest, you got fat and protein and carbs. And again, it's good with champagne. So like, why not? And it's cheap.
Yeah.
Very cheap.
Yep.
I'm going to have to try that out. That sounds absolutely spectacular.
Michael's recipe of the week: peanut butter and cheese sandwich on sourdough.
Yeah, and that was my dad. That was he put that in. He was an old school bodybuilder and like a hockey player, and so he was always like trying to get protein and stuff in. So
Right.
that's something he
I
would
guess
do.
that's a way to do it.
Yeah.
That would be great. Wow. So you've been kind of all over a little bit. Like you've been to Sonoma, Arizona, and all through Napa. What, and and here you are, also a Thai fighter. Like, how in the heck did you even get into wine?
How did I get into wine? I think it was kind of along with Muay Thai. So I was in Santa Rosa.
Right.
And didn't have exposure to wine at that point in high school. I think that was like the fourth high school I went to at that point in time. I was not a good student, definitely not like a violent, not like a maniac.
Right.
I don't think anybody was thinking that.
Okay, I don't know how that came up. Yeah, just like I don't know, like it's like, do you want to go to geometry class or do you want to go like hang out in the music room and like play with the instruments and goof off?
Right.
And I always chose that. Hard time sitting still, I think, is mostly what it comes to, and hard time doing one thing, or just like, this is your thing, this is what you do. I always have to have like lots of things, and then I always have to see how far they go. So Muay Thai was, a friend introduced me to it, and some guy who was like his coach, because he was fighting at the time, just did like his like 9th tour in a country I can't pronounce, and then he put gloves on me, and then he beat the crap out of me. Right, I was like 15, and this like military assassin just like blew my nose open, with like effortlessly. Like he didn't mean to, but probably kind of meant to, like a little bit, like. And then the next day I came back, and then he was just like, I didn't think you'd come back, and it turns out he's a really, really busy and really high level individual. And so he doesn't like to spend time with people who aren't like super committed. And so he kind of took me under his wing, and I was with one of my best friends at the time. And so, that just made sense, and then wine was like, just knowing about the proximity of like where we were and in Santa Rosa, and like that was kind of out there, and I didn't know anything about it. Food, cooking, all that just kind of naturally brought wine into the conversation. So I think I'd buy like cheap Trader Joe's wine. And then I found out about like, wine shops that would have like deals on like Portuguese wine, like cheap Portuguese stuff, and how just like delicious these things were, and
Right.
Especially when paired with food, like even kind of the most like okay thing suddenly had a place, So I liked that it seemed like it was a world that was expanding in front of me. Like, okay, maybe there's a lot here. And then it was like, well, needing a job and, restaurants, and I'm in California, so I've got access to working at these wine bars, and they've got super cool, like rare stuff coming through, right? Like your 100 Acres and your Screaming Eagles and your, Tokalon stuff, like all that cool stuff.
Right.
And I just suddenly had like access to these things through just like busing, and then like waiting, and then bar back, doing all that kind of fun stuff.
Right.
And then it was like, well,
Right,
like
right.
I imagine like going to the Sistine Chapel or like whatever, and you're just like, I didn't know this was here. I feel like art's like that, right? Like you
Very much
hear
like
about
that.
art, and like there's people who are like geeky about art, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then like if you go there and you see it, and you're like, whoa, like we just don't really have this appreciation as much in our culture or history or whatever, or maybe just access, right? Like even it's like, you got to go pop into a museum situation that's floating through Portland and heading to Seattle, but then you go to Europe and it's like
All around you.
that's just it. Like all the buildings look so cool to an American.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're ancient.
Well, yeah.
Architecture is all ancient.
It
so.
is. Yeah. When I was in Croatia last week, we had a translator, local person, and we were like, hey, we're gonna go see this castle. Have you heard anything about it? No, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now
And
it's just
but it's a castle.
yeah.
And,
no,
yeah.
I've had that experience that you're talking about when I got out of a cab in Spain into in Barcelona, and just like something that I'd like read about and then just like instantly started sobbing because it was so beautiful. And it's just like that experience is, I think you can have that over and over and over in Europe, seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Very cool.
Did I answer a question? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know where
did.
we ended up.
You
Yeah,
got
no,
there.
it was
You
like,
got
how
there.
did you get into wine?
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
It's like an amalgamation. I think it was a lot. And I think it was a lot.
Yeah, and your uncle too. You were spending time.
My uncle in California, so he collected wine, a lot of Napa stuff. He had a lot of old, like first growth kind of stuff that was gifts that he was given. And then I got, I did what I do with everything, which is like I just spent all my time like researching and studying all this stuff. And I was like, I think you might want to like start cracking into some of these, man. Like, I don't think they go forever.
Exactly.
They're expensive, but
Right.
and so like I got to do that, and then it just felt like one thing led to another, and got in touch with Chateau Montelena, and got to jump in and do some cool stuff with them, and kind of putz around the Napa scene for a while, and discovered that I'm a little bit of a hippie, and kind of dug the Sonoma side of things a little more. I felt like I had really quick access to seeing a lot of cool operations and really fine wines, and then I sort of noting the automation of a lot of things, and especially in Napa. I mean, everything is so
Massive.
there's just a lot of money, and there's a lot at stake, for wines that are in auction or going to Hong Kong or what have you, and I saw all that goes into that, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And then aspects also felt like just really sterile, seeing like automated punch down machines and like automated pump over machines and all this kind of stuff, and being in like facilities where it's like, oh, like there's like a consultant and they like come and check in on the wines and they taste them or do the blends, but it was just sort of not my scene.
Right.
And then jumped over to Sonoma, and then winemaking internships and harvest internships and all that kind of stuff, and just like right place, right time, and just got to get my hands dirty, making Pinot Noir and Zinfandel and Chardonnay and all the fun stuff, and got to taste a lot of those wines, and they were 12% alcohol, and just really inspired by the freshness and the sense of place that all the wines had, and then I got to quickly kind of see the expansion of the industry in Sonoma, and then where I felt kind of the best wines were continually coming from versus like kind of what the market was doing or demanding, and it just all was so like cool and complex and volatile. Like everyone was operating at the edge of this like volatility
Right.
constantly, and I'm like, oh, this is I could hang here. This seems fun.
And it is fun.
Yeah, totally.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so as this wine is getting a little bit more room temperature, oh my gosh. Earlier I said that raciness was kind of subdued a little bit, but wow. Now at room temperature, I mean, it's just singing.
Thank you.
And it's just it's again, it's not a slap you in the face kind of thing, and I don't want to slap me in the face kind of thing. I want something that has some character to it, and it grabs me, and it's there immediately. So I just wanted to remark on it, and that has got
Thank
room
you.
temperature a little bit more.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, this one. Sorry.
No, go for it.
There was so much like grip I felt like that the wine had when we were tasting it out of the puncheons. So we had these 3 puncheons and poking through, and I think you named them all.
I named them all Harry
characters.
Potter characters. There was Luna and Hedwig and Dobby.
And Dobby.
Were the
Yeah.
3 puncheons.
Nice.
Because I'm super geeky about that.
That's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all.
but yeah, just poking through, and it it was sort of neat to see the same lot of Chardonnay. I mean, it just treated the exact same way and just put into neutral puncheons, and then you started to see the different expression. Especially with the native ferment and maybe different amounts or strengths of lees, and wow, do they taste different when you're able to just taste them right there side by side. But something that was really consistent throughout all three puncheons is there was this thing of like sucking on a rock. Like there was a textural element there that left your mouth dry and just gave this sense of like just having a mouthful of rocks.
Right.
So there's this cool texture. And so I think a lot of what I was following in this wine in particular was like, I want to see how this texture plays out, and I thought it would be fun, especially because the wine is so ethereal, and so not doing any lee stirring, letting that native ferment take place, neutral puncheons. I felt like, well, one, I was scared because I'm like, this is really easy to mess up. like I'm riding this crazy edge of like revealing everything for the sake of preserving these like crunchy, subtle textures. So that was, scary, but also super fun to follow and just see, what the wine wanted to be and what direction it wanted to go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Last year when I did the podcast, with married couples, I did a newlywed game little segment, and I didn't prepare very much. So if you want to participate, I have one question that the both of you have to answer.
Yeah. Don't look at my answer. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Well,
Here we go. Don't cheat. Don't cheat.
And the reason I asked this is I asked Jessica and Peyton West of Approachment. So I asked the question to Jessica, and the answer that she gave just was like, Peyton was like, "What?" And I loved the reaction. So. That's
I love splitting couples up.
Yeah.
It's super fun.
You're gonna ask anything about dates or anything, he's gonna fail.
Nope, it's not that. So here's the question, and then both of you have to answer.
Okay.
What? So first, Michael, I'll ask you first.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. It's the middle of the night. The phone is ringing, and Mariel is in jail. What crime did she commit?
Oh. I immediately thought like, okay, this makes sense so far.
It sounds like there might be a lot of things that this could be.
Kidnapped a baby.
Kidnapped a baby.
That's 100%
Kidnapped
true.
a baby.
Oh, wow.
100% true. I love babies. We were literally at a restaurant last night, and there was this baby sitting it was a baby, but it was with his family a couple tables away. And I was like telling everybody that I was with, I was like, I'm gonna have to go see that baby. Like, I worked in the pediatric emergency department. I really love children.
Right.
And so I have, that's 100%. I would, it's code pink.
Okay.
I would get,
Very
there'd
nice.
be an Amber Alert out for somebody's child, and I would be behind bars.
You don't have to play it out. So.
It would probably be like a 6-month-old baby with a very round head that smelled delicious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See? you nailed it. Good job.
Nailed it. Yep.
All right. So the same question to you. If middle of the night, phone rings, Michael's in jail, what crime did he commit?
Probably lighting something on fire that shouldn't be on fire.
Okay.
Recently, we had a Christmas tree in our backyard that needed to be disposed of, and we live in Tigard, like in a very similar neighborhood to what you live in, like close in.
Right.
It's not like we're out in the country or anything. And we had a fire in the backyard, and he thought, I'm just gonna throw the dead Christmas tree on top of it, and it went whoosh and went up. So I think probably arson.
Okay. So
the one time I almost blow up the house.
Yeah.
That's the first time it happened.
Yeah, but you really did it. There's like the trees above it started to get
I've
brown.
actually never seen anything like it. It was
so scary.
It was so scary.
He just was like, and then he just grabbed my hand and we sat there staring at it because we both didn't know what to do. And I was like, oh my God, the fire department's going to come. So I think it would be that.
Okay.
Probably.
All right.
Accidents happen. We all deserve second chances.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm hearing here is both of you are going to work together as a great team. You're going to create a fire and create a diversion so you can go steal a baby.
There you go.
100%.
Yeah.
That's a nice positive twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Shall we go on to the next wine?
Yeah. Maybe you want to cover Chom since we just kind of talked about that?
Yeah.
Maybe. Shav, too much to say. But that really was, I've loved the Shav wines for a long time. And everywhere just from the whole range and the accessibility and the polish and the thought. But this idea of, again, sort of this winemaker, if you look at the winemakers I love, they're a lot of them I feel like kind of shy away from numbers and chemistry, right?
Right.
And like I said, that just works easier for me. I can't follow a recipe to save my life. Plus numbers stress me out. I think it's because I was never good at math. I don't know. And so, like with our numbers this year for our Gamay that we brought in, it was like my yans were really low. 150% lower than you might want, right? If you're listening to like any reputable institution that tells you how to ferment things.
Right.
And so, like, I had a buddy, like, the chemist was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm like, nothing, because then I'll get stressed out. And so, I think that's my way of, like, not taking the math test, right? Like skipping class and not taking the math test.
Right.
So just to know that we sort of have this, like, compendium of, like, a lot of, like, institutionalized sort of, like, a compilation of data and data points. And over time, we're like, this is what you look at. And that's done wonders to create better wine just everywhere in the world, sharing that data, sharing that information. I feel like that doesn't help you make this wine, And then it was like, oh, okay, like it's just a different recipe. It's just like, okay, it's not going by a recipe. It's going by some other type of recipe that doesn't rely on measuring.
I think you rely a lot on
like
like your sensory information to make decisions.
But I like the idea that, that's naturally how I think about things too. Again, maybe it's just like avoiding
numbers.
like what people want me to do or something, and I'm like, I'll find a way around it. But I'm usually like pretty good at like navigating around things and like finding a different path, and then figuring out that there was a lot of winemakers out there that naturally thought like that as well. It's like, okay, like there's hope for me. Like I don't have to make wine, based off of these things. I can, maybe make wine based off of having a deep library of textures, and then using that library of textures to remind myself when texture accented freshness to enhance perception of acidity. And now you're like, oh, now I've got some room to play. And that's what I like. I like room to play. I don't like to have the right answer. I'm like, I'm in the range, you know what I mean? Which is like Muay Thai too. It's like you're fighting, right? So it's like, it's not, like if you go into a fight and you're like, I'm gonna jab, and then I'm gonna cry, you're gonna get beat up.
Yeah.
But if you learn the interplay and you learn the, kind of ever-changing chaos and order, right? This continual play. And for me, like, that's what wine is, and winemaking. And it's like, it's seeing the opposite element in the element you're currently working with, not trying to like standardize that element. So I felt that there was a lot of room to play with a lot of the wines that I felt I enjoyed the best. And I'm like, well, that seems like counter, like, intuitive to like everything I learned growing up. It was like, there's a right way to do things, and if you want to do things on a high level, like, you got to go to school, and you got to learn things this way. And And it was like, but wait, like these guys are making something and they're not going by those rules.
Right.
So it's like, well, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. There, you know, talking about Muay Thai, I read a description of it and I'm like, why aren't you using this to talk about your wines, right? So it is known as the art of 8 limbs, referring to the 8 points of contact that are used to strike the opponent.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, like, you know, the art of, you know, 8 sensories, referring to the 8 points of contact that like really grab the wine connoisseur
Yeah.
to like overwhelm
Like
them.
making a mental
Yeah.
marketing note right now to steal this from you.
Okay, good. I hope you do. Yeah, I was
No.
thinking about it. I was like, yeah, that's a perfect tie-in.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say beat people up if they don't buy the wine. But
Well,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
too.
you
Yeah.
can do that too.
As a
but-
last
Yeah.
resort.
As a
Right.
last
As a
resort,
last
right?
I'm the muscle, obviously, in this relationship, so it
Yeah.
would be me breaking kneecaps and, you know.
Yeah, there you go. And you're breaking the kneecaps, and then in the middle of the night, you're just setting arson to their house.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh,
We sound
Lord.
way more exciting than we actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Well,
what
yeah.
you're supposed
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in the world of social media.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Also, can we talk about how much better this bottle of Chave is than our Chardonnay? It's just
Can you stop?
a lot
Oh,
better.
I think it
Different.
depends on a person's taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
this is pretty
It's
incredible
wild.
for being
It's wild. I mean,
2009.
you smell like chamomile tea, and then you get this like aspirin, and then you know that the wine has age, and you know that it's not lacking freshness, and that's that order, chaos, interplay that tells you the other one's there and enhances it.
I feel like this could go for another 10 years. It's already
oh,
like
easily. I mean,
it's 2009 and
you can just look at the color of it
Yeah.
and know that
Yeah.
it still has a bunch of time on it.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yum. Yummy.
So one of the books it sounds like that you've really enjoyed over the years is The Art of War.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of I don't know. I'm a nerd. A lot of Eastern philosophy.
Right.
A lot of books on like ancient sword fighting techniques, and you go and you read books on technique and sword fighting, and then you read philosophies of the time, and then a lot of the people who taught sword fighting were also philosophers themselves, and you see the range, and you see the power of an idea, and you see the power of a sword that's been forged through tens of thousands of folds, and it's just the clashing and the range of all that like grips everything, and I just think it's there's some good principles for life there.
I completely agree. And the reason I brought it up is I was curious if you read the book, The War of Art.
No,
Ooh. No.
I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like it.
It's a short read. It's easy, but it is all about trying to get the expression of what you're wanting to put out there into the world, and the struggle that you have of like, is it good enough? Is it not good enough? And just that constant battle of our internal selves of trying to bring art into the world. And so I, just thought I might bring that to your attention.
Yeah,
'Cause-
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm sure you'd love
Yeah,
that.
you're gonna lose me for a while.
Yeah.
I think there might be a bottle of wine involved,
Yeah.
and like it's rainy out, it's after
Totally.
harvest.
That's really cool, and like I super resonate with that, because something that's been I can't even fully articulate all the things that I think about when I'm doing, and it became like really I don't know, like obvious at some, like it just clicked all of a sudden, and it was like, whoa, like this crazy internal struggle that I go through to constantly satisfy whatever it is that allows me to feel at peace after I've thought about something every way I can possibly think about it.
Right.
I don't really want anyone else to to go through that. Like that's the blessing and the curse of being behind the scenes. But then once like the wine gets out, it's sort of like we're just happy to share it and want people to find something in it that drives their own inspirations, and
Right.
if it's just a meal, or if it's whatever it is, Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is very cool. Speaking of art and expression and trying to get your stuff out there, one of your labels, how many times did it get rejected by the TTB?
Like 6, something like that. It was something wild, and because our original, the Syrah that we made, the label that we tried to put on it, there's lots of rules about if you bring, fruit over from Washington into Oregon, obviously you can't use a sub-AVA. So we just slapped like Washington Syrah in there and like called it a day. But they're very particular about, how you can write things on there. And every time you submit it, it takes another couple of weeks. And so we originally had a totally different plan, I think, for that. And then we had a picture from when we were first making wine in the garage. And then we like slapped that on there in a cartoon form, and it's cool. So we just went with that.
So it got rejected because of wording and not of picture, or
there was wording originally, and then
a lot of it was, I think, the technical information and not being able to use the sub AVA and then it's like, well, if I can't use the sub AVA, then it sort of feels weird to put the vineyard on there, and it just felt, I don't know, it just wasn't working, and it was such another fun lesson and good lesson in that I'd spent so much time sort of developing these labels and working on the design concepts, and then it was like months and months of work, and then it was like it didn't mean anything.
And we were just
which was such a good, I'll be like Muay Thai back in this. It's like you can't, before you fight, you're doing all this training, and then you get into a fight and you realize how much doesn't apply anymore to what you were just doing. And a lot of that is like there's additional energy here, right? Like you're not just mechanically doing something. And so like making those labels and working on design concepts, I was like repetitiously, like endlessly, like mechanically doing something without realizing what it was going to have to go through in order for it to actually become a thing. And
best laid plans.
And the lesson was that like I shouldn't be spending any time on it actually, and then like by the time we're ready to bottle, we'll just kind of boom boom boom. And so it was actually a good lesson in like efficiency. Like I don't need to be racking my brain over this, and to kind of simplify that part of the process.
Yeah.
It's good to learn some things like that.
Yeah, we're learning from the ground up. I certainly, I do a lot of like the compliance side of stuff and talking to people, and this is all things that I have learned just like on the go. Like I have no background in that.
Yeah.
So it's just like
it's fun that way, right?
I get a little nervous. That I'm going to mess something up. Like I don't want to send.
I'd be nervous too. I mean, that's the legal stuff.
Exactly.
I don't want to send the wrong paper to the wrong person, and like make sure I like pay the man and all the things. So it's a little nerve wracking, but it's fun.
You do a really good job at that.
Thank you, babe.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
how nerve wracking was it, getting, sterilizing your feet and Michael carrying you down the stairs to do foot stomping?
This guy, he's like, you have to take your toenail polish off, and then we're going to dunk your feet in sulfur, and then I'm going to piggyback you up from upstairs to downstairs, and then I'm going to gently place you in there to visage. And I was like, okay, he
it was all that training that he has done. He's like, we got this. Let's do this.
He definitely, like we want a clean product, and of course. I think that he definitely is very focused on that, and it's important, and that's why we got this beautiful clarity of wine and all the things, and so.
You heard the condiment story. You know how my brain works. Like, it's just how it goes.
Right.
I'm probably, but maybe not for what we want to do.
Yeah.
But probably
we don't. We don't make a lot of wine, and so we're pretty meticulous. I think when it comes down to it, just because, if one little thing messed up our whole production, that's our whole production. Mm-hmm. We don't have like barrels and barrels and barrels to rely on, and so I think we're both, at this point, I've definitely learned to be meticulous as well. And like, when I go and I do punch downs myself, and he's like, make sure you wipe and all. And I'm like looking for every little thing that could be on there, because I don't want him to go after me and I'm not there and he'll be like, I found this one smudge.
Oh,
and
no.
yeah, exactly. And I'll be like, I failed. So I've learned to be meticulous as well, which is not my natural nature, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to be meticulous.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's one winery in the valley that they will not allow their hoses to be, drug along the floor.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's just...
Yeah. Everybody's got their thing and their way of like making sure that they are making what they want to make. And I think like there's just a wide range of that. And
there's a lot of attention to detail so that we can be really hands off with it. There's certain aspects that are really maybe slightly more hands on, like pagaging through the first part of primary, rather than like transitioning into punch downs or something. But I like feeling the temperature of the ferment, knowing that the temperature is varying in different areas, and being able to feel that with your leg and with your feet. And
right.
For me, I feel like if I go to a punch down early on, I don't really know where the most active parts of the ferment are. I don't really know how much I'm spreading around the more active yeast and into what areas. So I could be pocketing more areas of, CO2 ultimately, and I might have more reduction or all these things. And so being able to just feel it, and that just works better for me.
I couldn't hop in there this year, though. I'm not tall enough. We are using a huge fermenter, and if I got in there, it would probably be up to my neck.
Yeah,
so.
it did get
wow.
to the point
Yeah.
where I'm like, this is a lot of CO2. I'm
Start
transition
punching.
into.
Yeah.
But at that point, the heat distribution's better, and it's not as
Yeah.
much of a concern.
Once it gets active.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is great.
Yeah.
Shall we dive into the third wine real quick?
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Okay.
So we're doing the Gams this year, and Gamay, maybe I don't know. I think my first love affairs were Riesling and Gamay.
I thought about getting a Gamay out, and I'm like, oh, but you really like Chardonnay too. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I was torn. Gamay, Chardonnay. Ah.
So again, and obviously another legend in the game, LaPierre. His kids have taken over the project. But just, I think what I really love about this wine in particular is the complete sense of freshness, the interplay between the, I hate to use the word cleanliness, preciseness, and the volatility.
Right.
So I love that interplay. I will say that I'm not a big Brettanomyces, a real big reduction, anything in any one direction. But when they just play back and forth and it's in balance, I just see it as so cool to walk that line.
Right.
LaPierre does it effortlessly. The wines feel ethereal, but they feel compact. And it's that compactedness in a light package that really inspires me for our Gamay. We're going to be somewhere in between 11 and 12% on our Gamay. Like I said, flavors were there early, so we had this full spectrum of really, really bright, crunchy red fruits that I didn't want to lose. And so I'm really focusing on that kind of weightlessness with that compactedness so that you can have a low alcohol wine and have it not feel too light. And LaPierre's, that's the man.
I love the nose on this.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now I'll say it. Yummy. Yeah, super yummy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's
Love that
delicious.
stuff. That's the best word for wine.
It really is.
I mean, if anything, what I want to make is yummy. Truly,
Right.
that's such a childlike, obvious appeal to us is yummy. I remember going through and making this chart of okay, it's really easy to talk about the things you want to make in a wine. It's really hard to implement exactly what you're thinking about. So you might say I want a wine that's complex, but how much complexity relative to accessibility and yumminess do you want? Because complexity to a certain point limits yumminess and obviousness and accessibility. And so it's with our Pinot Noir, something that I really wanted was a really delicate profile, but I wanted complexity. And in some ways, I feel like the complexity ran away a little bit. And so, yeah, just really trying to pinpoint first, second, third, what's the most important?
Right.
And I think that on the nose on this, right, you get that sensorial, like that complexity on the nose, but there's something that's telling you like, this is going to be yummy. And then reaffirmed on the palate, yumminess, yumminess, yumminess.
Right.
And then you sort of have this moment where we could just move on, or we could sit there and talk about it. And I want people to be able to drink our wines. And if you want to look for things, I think there's cool Easter eggs in there. If you don't, I hope we hit that yumminess factor so that you can just do your thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like there's a bit of a bell curve too with how you talk about wine. Like you start out being like, I like this, it's yummy, and then as you learn more about wine, you start to like talk more seriously about it and are giving tasting notes, and you're like pencil shavings and forest floor, and then you kind of go back down the other side of the bell curve to like this is yummy. Yeah. Like, you don't feel the need to kind of like expand on it anymore when like you just like something, and I think that's like a good place to be. So I feel like I'll drink a lot of things. I'll be like yum. And that's it. And that's all I've got to say about it, but I like it, you know?
And that's all that's needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I find there's wines that are really cool to taste. And like I love tasting Barolo, you know, El Viejo, I really love their Barolos. But in Barbarescos and these wines, I think I love to taste those wines even more than I love drinking them. Because there's so much complexity and sometimes it's just like I'm overwhelmed, you know, like I'll have a half glass of it and I almost can't sit back and just drink it.
Right.
But Gamay has that cool accessibility there where I feel like it just thrives in this place of yummy and accessibility, and then you can kind of go from there if you want.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely amazing. Going back to meticulous for a little bit, I need to know more about this hand destimmer that y'all created.
Oh, Lord. That was, he was like...
Did I ballpark us at like 3 hours?
He ballparked at 3 hours. Well, he was up really late one night watching this family with a basket that had been woven probably by somebody's grandma back in the day over a fermenter, and they're rolling the grapes along this basket. But there's like 10 family members doing it, and it's hand stemming the grapes that way. And so he wakes up the next day and he's like, I've got an idea, and we're going to hand stem these. We're going to do it just like they did in Savoie in this big basket. And I was like, where are we going to get a big basket?
It's 3 a.m. YouTube. I'm looking at family videos in Savoie.
Yeah. And
super cool.
It was so very cool. It's a cool video.
Yeah. So cool. I'm like, first of all, where do I get a small village of people who like want to like that?
Want to do this?
But like that's normal.
That's normal.
Like to see that, that's so cool.
It is so cool. Yeah. And overseas, I mean, everybody is a community.
Yeah.
Everybody helps out.
Yeah.
And so, you know, our version was closet-made racks that we zip-tied together and put over a fermenter and rolled the grapes over with our hands.
It took a long time.
It took a long time. He was like, I think it's going to be like, it'll take like 2 hours. It was like 8 hours or something ridiculous like that. It took us forever. But, you know, I think the Pinot speaks for itself. It's got really like nice, delicate flavors because of that treatment. Like I'm going to attribute it only to that.
Of course.
Because I have to, because it took so flippin' long. Like it was only that.
We did
that
half, and then we pajaged the shit out of the second half. Like, after that third bottle of champagne kicked in, I think we're done doing this process. But it was super cool to play with this idea. And again, maybe there was too much volatility and complexity in that wine and not enough just like accessibility in the mid palate. But like, what happens when, like with a destemmer, you get so much more uniform, tearing of the stems. And so there's a lot of different ways at literally every part of the winemaking process where you can look at homogenization versus non-homogenization.
Right.
And I started, listening to a lot more people who were looking at it through the lens of non-homogenization and dealing with like all of the factors. Right. And so it was like, okay, by hand stemming, like everything is being destemmed differently. And it's sort of like, that's cool. Like, let's see what that does, and sort of what parts of the process do we like to be a little more uniform about? What parts do we like to be less uniform about? Like, where does it make sense? Where does it not make sense? It's a really cool process, even just being connected, to it. We're warming it up, we're touching it, we're helping to start that ferment. and you get a sense of the ripeness, you get a sense of the varied ripeness, the cluster uniformity or the range of clusters. And so it was just another way to sort of look at the range of possibilities that we can kind of incorporate.
It ended up being fun. It was just a long process.
Well, yeah, and it's a great story.
Yeah, it is.
It is such a great story.
It is a good story.
So one of the things that I noticed, like on your website, for people to come, have a taste of your wine, you bring wine to the people. Mm-hmm. So you come, you go to the people, and like, you don't even necessarily bring all of your own wines. You bring other wines, like you did today.
Yeah.
And that is such a cool little twist, and it's really amazing. What made you think of doing that?
I think it's just like inspirations for us. Like obviously, logistically, part of it is due to the fact that we have a single wine that we made in 2022 that we focused all of our efforts on, which was the Chardonnay. But we want to put it in context with other things that we love or that inspire us. And I think it's a good way for people to kind of get more exposure to things that we like and kind of understand who we are and like what we're inspired by and what kind of drives us. And so I think to have people taste things that we love, it's just kind of a fun way to, explore a little bit. And then, I think even if we had 6 different wines that we made, we might still do it because there's just so much that we love to drink and like we want to share it with people. I don't know if that's kind of what you think about it.
It's incredibly difficult to get access to certain wines that inspire you. And so, one, if I'm going to pop a bottle that we really love, first and foremost, like that's what I'm trying to do with our wines is just share something I love.
Right.
And so I obviously have these other producers who are just way better at what they do at this point, and I would love to share that with other people. And like I said, it's a continual learning, continually tasting. I feel like it's personal education for us every single time, as much as I think like I have a pretty good memory of things I've tasted.
No, he has like an insane memory of things that he's tasted.
And so it's really great then to taste something that's then had time to evolve for a few more years and reference that last point where I tasted it, and then it's like, whoa, like I didn't see this part coming.
Right.
Or, oh yeah, this is exactly what I thought. Oh, okay. So like when they talked about kind of doing things this way, maybe this is what I'm tasting, maybe that's how it translated. And so it's, just this ever evolving game, and just being able to share things. Like I said, we don't make very much. Maybe this will change a little bit as we go forward, but I think just sharing things we love in general is something you and I are really passionate about. It's always fun to
we love having people over. We love like opening wine for people. I think that's like where our souls meet, is like just kind of entertaining and like showing people that we love them by like showering them with food and wine. Right. Like it's just a lot of what we love to do. So
yeah, and maybe I think most people haven't had a lot of these wines. And
exactly.
And so it's like I, at some point, learned about them from other people, and it's like, well, love to pass that on and share that to other people, and then maybe that sparks something for them, and they're like, wow, like now I think about wine kind of differently, or maybe I do like this style of wine, or maybe I like reduction, or maybe I like this varietal, or maybe I'll go visit this place, or what have you.
Right,
yeah.
right. No, that is great.
Yeah.
All right, so I have some rapid fire questions.
Ooh, fun.
And then we'll reveal the blind wine after that.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So, favorite artist to listen to during harvest?
Ooh. You go first.
Rage Against the Machine.
Oh. Speaks to my heart right there.
Yeah. What did I listen to the other day driving out to the vineyard that I was like, oh, that's great? I think, a lot of it for me is Radiohead. And now I can't remember what I was listening to, so
that's
it's
okay.
gone.
Radiohead.
Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Polar opposites.
Yeah.
Favorite indulgent food?
Sandwiches.
That's indulgent for
Yeah.
you?
A lot of sandwiches.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're saying like you would like
Like the amount.
The amount.
Oh, are you saying like it has to be like a cheesecake on top of like a pie or like?
Well, like when you're like, so for example, one person answered, I was like, I love champagne, potato chips, creme fraiche, and caviar.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
delicious.
Is that indulgent?
Yeah.
Oh.
Caviar?
We might be hedonists.
We are hedonists.
Yeah.
That's for sure. He makes a really amazing duck breast.
Oh.
Yeah. That I really enjoy.
Okay, wait. Let's linger on this for a second. I like this now.
Okay.
Now that I have context for indulge.
Yeah. I mean, other winemakers
Yeah,
have said like smash burgers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Smash burgers, chips. I bet you eat a lot of chips. I'm a snacker.
He is such a snacker, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I just like to have a poke and then I don't like when like flavors stop.
Right.
So like when
I don't like when flavors
I
stop.
sound like I'm 5. Do you guys like when flavors stop? That makes me sad.
Makes me very sad.
I don't think they should do that. They shouldn't make it that way. Yeah, like when flavors stop. Like you know.
Keep saying it.
If I say it, will it be more true? Like okay, Cabernet and like steak like is just like okay for me because for me the flavors stop. It's like complementary things. I like a
Right.
lot of contrasting things. And so, yeah, you mentioned like the potato chips and the champagne and the textures and the flavors. I like when you can keep, like as soon as something tastes the same more than a couple of times, I'm just done.
Yeah.
I'm just, like I've got to move on to something else.
Like I feel like
don't
you
get to-
prefer like a burger with white burgundy
Yeah.
and like, which is very...
Yeah, to like pop off the pickles.
Okay.
So I like a lot of like palate resets and
Okay.
play.
Yeah.
No, that is good to know. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Flying.
Yeah. Easy.
Does that, hey, I have a question about this.
Okay,
Is
go
that
for
okay?
it. Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah, of course. Anything.
I feel if with flying, do you automatically get some like extra like invincibility? Because are you flying and if you hit something, you're done?
Oh, great.
You know what I mean?
Good question.
Sure. Let's say yes.
Yeah.
It's that I don't know if that's a great superpower then, because you're gonna run into stuff and die.
Why?
'Cause
I don't do
most-
that when I'm walking most of the time. Why would I do it when I'm flying?
Well, most superheroes that fly though, they can also run into stuff and not die.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
I mean, if you collide into an airplane, you don't want to die.
Right. Okay, I'll take
Or
the
like if you're
invincibility
flying
too.
and a bird hits you, you're donezo. If you're just your normal weak human self but can fly, right? Am I wrong in this?
Or if there's some turbulence in the wind or
Right,
whatever.
That's
I mean,
true. Okay, I'll take invincible flying as my...
Invincible flying. Good workaround.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like
yeah.
that.
And yours?
I like that. Invisible seems fun, but it seems like I couldn't help people. And I feel like if I'm gonna have a superpower, I should help people. So maybe super strength.
Okay. Like,
But then if I didn't have super speed,
Thor.
I couldn't get to like natural disasters and like do anything with it.
okay. You're going to have to decide on one.
You need to find a workaround.
I gotta find a workaround.
Yeah.
I like, who I think I like? I think I like, who's the man who does things with water?
Aquaman?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like, the ocean. And the more that I could do things to participate in the, equilibrium of maintaining the ocean, that's probably the most
you
impact
wanna be
I could
Aquaman?
have.
Okay.
I
That would
went
be great.
invincible flying Aquaman.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. That was our short answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Harvest notes, are they written or digital?
Oh my God. We're the worst. I take pictures.
Notes.
I take pictures so that we remember what days things happened and
Right.
when we did things.
no.
And like, we're terrible at notes.
Okay.
We're really bad at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But we remember things. Like, we
Yeah.
know what we did. We know what we added. We know generally what dates those are. But they'll be like, what day did we do this?
Notes give me anxiety because then you can go back to a note and then you can have new information and now your note is like accusing you. It's like looking at you like, well, you did the wrong thing and now I know I did the wrong thing.
Yeah, we tried. We started a notebook, I think, first year, and it was like 9/16/22, and then it was like whatever we did that day.
Yeah.
That lasted about 2 days, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then we fell off of it hard.
This is maybe
We
why
both-
we can't scale. Yeah. No. Well, I mean,
Why we'll never get there.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's a lot
Fine.
of it's in the moment stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think notes like freak me out. Maybe similarly to like running too many numbers. Because if I have the information, then I start feeling pressured to work off of the information. And so if I have the notes, I start feeling pressured to take the notes into account too much.
Right.
And it's like distracting.
Yeah. So no notes.
No notes.
No
It's
notes.
not even digital
Okay.
or
That's great.
There's just none. Yeah.
It's all up here.
It's
and
all
it's
up
a
here.
feeling.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah. She'll ask me stuff. She'll be like, hey, what did we do for this? And I was like, we just,
We did this.
yeah, it worked. It worked. Did it work?
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you asking? Right. Leave it alone. Why are you bringing it up?
All right. Last final question for rapid fire. Last book you read. It could be on Audible or it could even be like a podcast or something.
Last book I read was Four Feathers. I think it was called Four Feathers, or The Winds of Four Feathers, something in that realm, about the Depression and the Dust Bowl that happened in America. It was very interesting. It was a sad book. I cried very hard at the end.
I was going to say that sounds sad.
It was very
Wow.
sad. Yeah.
Right.
Why are you reading about the Depression?
Because it was an interesting book. I don't know. It was given to me by Amanda, and she was like, "You should read this. You'll like it." She gave me a stack of books when I went to her house. Because I don't go out and buy my own books. I just
Yeah.
rely on her to hand them down to me.
That's really good, though. I
Yeah.
feel like that's way better. There's
And-
too many options.
Yeah. Yeah, because
It's
if
so
I went to
good
the
if someone
bookstore...
recommends you a book and they're like, read this. You're like,
Yeah,
okay,
if I went to the
maybe
bookstore,
should.
I could never just like pick something. I'm like, I'm going to read this. So
Right.
when she just hands me a stack, I trust her judgment. She likes to read, and
Yeah.
I just read what she gives me, and
Very
then I'll
nice.
pass them along.
Yeah.
So now I have that I haven't started The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and that's my next book.
Super good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself, Michael?
Something also, I don't know why I've been critical of you reading depressing stuff. Probably like something like Dostoevsky stuff. I like philosophy stuff, like the kinds of, I don't know, like in like Greek philosophy. I like all the puzzles.
Okay.
I like it's mostly all philosophy. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Philosophy, wine stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. It's
All
all
right.
philosophy and wine books.
All right. Well, shall we reveal the blind wine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it was a hard decision. I wanted to. I was going to get a Chardonnay from White Walnut, right? And I'm like, he might guess that way too easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we love this wine.
Right, because I mean they're unique. They're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I had to dig deep a little bit further.
Yeah.
And so you had some time in Antica Terra. And so Tom, who has Pray Tell, I wanted to, I brought that out because.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Really delicious.
Yeah.
We've never had his wine,
Yeah.
so this is amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really delicious. Yeah. Super cool. What's so he's doing his own, what did he do? Did he learn to make wine with Maggie?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He learned to make wine with Maggie. He has, I can't remember the blend, but it's like, I want to say it's a Pinot Noir Merlot blend. It's a very unique blend.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah.
I blinded Andrew Rikers from Audient, who was assistant to Maggie on that wine. And he's like, what in the heck is this? Because it was
I'm
so
trying to
unique.
imagine how that would kind of...
Yeah, and
Mash.
when we turn the cameras off and whatnot, I'll pull the bottle because I can't remember the blend exactly.
Yeah.
But it was a
Awesome.
unique blend, and I love what Tom was doing.
No, this is beautiful.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super
It's
tasty.
right up our alley.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well,
Very cool stuff.
Well, do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
What's your favorite thing about doing these podcasts?
I love doing the research and finding out like the little idiosyncrasies, like just details.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think like where we talked about you sorting through my condiments. That was a deep cut. Like, great
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, no,
This man takes notes.
Uh-huh.
and it's fun because I get to know the people behind the label more, And I think that's what needs to like shine.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's why I do this.
Have you? Can I have a question? Do I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
anything
yeah,
else?
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you ever? Have you ever loved? And you don't have to say who they are.
Right.
Have you ever loved the wines, and then you meet the person, you're like, oh, they're kind of dude.
I'll say, yep.
Yep. Yeah, okay. It's not us, right?
No, it is not you. It is not you. No.
Just checking, no pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this has been an absolute blast.
Thanks for having us.
I didn't know much about your story.
Yeah.
But we've been sitting here for over an hour, and just to get to know you more, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And it's been a
this is
blast.
great.
I hope that when we go back and watch this, I answered
Questions.
some questions.
You did.
Oh, you did.
And I
Yeah.
didn't just talk like a river of thought
No,
No.
you did
and
great.
wander away.
No,
Okay.
No.
you did great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was all great.
Very good
It
answers.
was all great. All right. Well,
Sweet.
thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much. I
No,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. This
Yeah.
was great.
Loved it.
Thanks
Awesome.
for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on this flavorful voyage through the world of wine on the Wine Notes podcast. I've been your host and guide, AJ Weinzettel, and it's been an absolute pleasure sharing these captivating stories with you. But alas, like the last sip of a fine vintage, our time together must end. But don't fret, my wine-loving friend. The cellar doors of the Wine Notes podcast will always remain open, waiting for you to return and explore new conversations, stories, and musings from the captivating people behind the magical world of wine. Before you go, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and don't forget to leave a sparkling 5-star review to help spread the word. Until our glasses clink again, remember to savor life's moments and let the spirit of wine and camaraderie linger on your palate. Cheers, and as always, may your wine glass be full, your heart be light, and your journey